See, what happens is when I don't do a video for a while, I kind of go like brain dead. As soon as I hit record, I'm like, yeah, so what do I want to talk about? I want to talk about burnout. And I think some of the misconceptions around it and some of the ways to combat it, I guess. I feel like I've got burnout at the minute. I don't know whether it's a creative burnout or just kind of a general burnout. So if you don't know what burnout is, it's kind of like, it's almost a state of like high functioning exhaustion. That's kind of the best way to describe it. I think it's like a mental, emotional exhaustion, a fatigue that just kind of goes on and on. And half the time the cause of it is when we've kind of prolonged stressful situations. So oftentimes burnout can be caused by heavy workloads and things like that, or just general day-to-day life circumstances. But yeah, it is that kind of prolonged state of doing. It's that constant doing and needing to do or feeling obliged. I think that's kind of like the difference between normal exhaustion and burnout. It's that thing of being in that state of feeling obliged that you're to do things, like to work, to live. Yeah, I don't know, maybe maybe the world is in kind of like a global burnout, especially with like recent years and things. So what are some of the ways to combat burnout? So I'm currently trying to kind of get my, I call it mojo, it's kind of like my energy levels back to kind of par. They're very subpar at the minute, especially when it comes to like creating. Like, I'm a very creative person, but like I don't feel like I've been as creative at all like this year. Partly down to my job. My job does kind of require that kind of creative aspect at times. So I headed marketing for a fulfillment company, which entails so many different things, from content creation to like email marketing to newsletters, graphic design, video editing. So I don't know whether work is like slowly sucking the soul out of me, I don't know. When it gets to burnout is that kind of sign to stop and reassess like what is causing you this stress, this kind of prolonged state of stress and things. I think for me, what happens is I feel so conflicted at times because I'm such a creative person, just by nature and by being, that work, like even the word work, it's so conflicting to that side of me, which is kind of creative and like just, yeah, it kind of symbolises like rules, regulations, and if you don't work then you can't pay bills, you can't pay rent, you can't pay for various things. So yeah, it's kind of a heavy word, work. So it could well be work that's kind of caused my current state of burnout. I do think it's personal circumstances as well. Like I've moved probably about three times or four times in the last 2 years, which is a lot. And I actually recently moved across country, which was, I mean, for some people it is a big move. For me, it's just that thing of packing up my stuff and going. That's kind of me. So where am I going with this? Welcome back to the rambles. So yeah, I can't guarantee that I'll get back to posting weekly videos. Like I keep finding like random throwbacks and things, so I'll probably throw those up, and just random bits of music that I kind of do. So I am kind of doing little bits of creative things for me. That's kind of the difference as well. I've kind of exhausted, yeah, the creative resources for work, so I do need to find that balance. And burnout is that thing of like things being out of balance, you know, for so long. So yeah, it's just kind of resetting those scales. Let's just get to some tips on how you can possibly combat burnout. I do have a friend who keeps recommending therapy. So therapy is kind of up there if you do feel like you can't see a way of combating burnout yourself, if you're just kind of feeling overwhelmed by it. If you have symptoms of like apathy or anything like that, I also would recommend going to therapy and sorting that out and talking it out and seeing if you can kind of work out goals through therapy. So yeah, therapy would be tip number one. Tip number two, rest. Yeah, it's so important to rest. Now, for me, I do struggle, especially when I'm in like a state of stress. I struggle with sleep, like getting enough sleep and things. And like with my job as well, I have monthly deadlines that I have to meet. Oftentimes I put this pressure on myself because I am head of my department, so like I can kind of set my workload and things to a point, but we are an independent business, so there's that kind of thing in the background that, you know, we are trying to kind of get to a point where we can relax a little bit more. But at this current time, for a successful business, it does require all hands on deck. That's it, Ben, if you're watching. So yeah, it's really important to rest, and to get good rest, it's important that you're kind of maintaining your diet. So when I get to a point of like feeling a bit slumped, especially energy levels, I do kind of tend to take vitamin supplements. So at the minute I'm taking Floridix, which is all good natural stuff, and it's all the stuff that I definitely seem to be missing. Just because when you're working so much, you might not often eat as well as you should. So yeah, diet's probably tip number three, I guess, but it's tied into rest, because if you're not eating properly, you won't rest properly. Your body needs the nutrients to kind of fuel up and things, science. Tip number three is diet. Tip number four, especially because we're in the UK, and I mean, it is supposed to be summer, but like where I am, I'm lucky. I had like one nice evening the other evening, and yeah, it's just kind of been rain and grey skies and things, and I do feel like the weather does affect people, you know. It's kind of, we're in that synergy with the weather. We're like, yeah, it does. It's a big aspect in our lives, like how the weather dictates our moods and things, as well as other aspects of nature. Was that tip number 4 or 5? I don't know. Tip 4, another one. So having lived in the city, in the countryside, like rural countryside, and then in the city again, and then being by the seaside, it's really important to get out in nature, to walk and things. Yeah, I would kind of suggest, if you can get to a park, if you live in a city, you know, try and get out, try and get away from roads and pollution and fumes and noises and things. I think we're becoming such a overly stimulated culture. We have so many like distractions and noises and things, and we're just in that state of like high alert constantly, especially in cities. So yeah, I would kind of recommend getting away from too much noise, too much pollution. Even for like 10-minute walk or like 20-minute walk, do that. Just try and get out in nature. If not, get plants. Plants are a great one. My one in the background is kind of like looking at me a bit like, I did water it this morning. I did deadhead it as well. So plants and like nature and things, it's so, I can't describe like the feeling of being out in nature and things. It's very calming, and your spiritual woo-woo people say it's grounding, you know, you've got to ground your energy, that kind of thing. But it's down to science as well. Plants give off certain neutrons and all that thing. So that's kind of one of my new hobbies, I guess, because I'm not creating, is getting out for walks. So hopefully I'll get out for a walk. I don't know, like the skies are grey and maybe it'll get all stormy and things. But yeah, that was partly the reason why I moved away from the city. It was kind of to get back in nature. Like, I'm a very quiet person. I'm kind of in... I do have like PTSD and things like that, where I'm in that kind of state of hyper vigilance and hyper arousal most of the time. So I have to kind of remove myself from too much like stimulants, because that exhausts me as well. So maybe it is kind of like city living, maybe. Maybe that's what's burnt me out and how people are. Do I have any other tips? Tip 6. Set small tasks for yourself. I think with burnout, it's very easy to fall into that state of like not so much apathy, but close to that, where you lose interest and you kind of like overwhelmed, where you just can't focus on anything. You tend to procrastinate a lot with burnout as well, and time just seems to fly by. So I think it's important to set little goals for yourself throughout the day, be it like making your bed in the morning, brushing your teeth, showering, yeah, and when you've done like a small daily task like that, reward yourself, you know. So what I tend to do as like a bit of a reward system, because I work from home, so it's kind of like finding that routine. Routine is a good one for combating burnout as well. I'm trying to my own hair, I think, getting into that routine of doing small tasks, and eventually you will kind of brainwash your mind into kind of being a bit more proactive and productive. I've never pronounced that word like that, productive. So yeah, it's important to kind of do that reward factor, you know. I genuinely think we are kind of children at heart. Incentive, it's giving that incentive to yourself to kind of do things that you might not necessarily want to do, but they are beneficial to you. I think with such complex and like simple creatures, it's so like dualistic and conflicting things, but we are, you know, it's that thing of like the things that we don't want to do are actually usually good for us. And it's that same thing of like eating your greens and things like that, you know. Sugar's great because it's that instant dopamine hit, but it's in the long term it's not good for us. It's the greens that don't taste nice and are a bit boring and bland and things, but they actually do wonders for us. So yeah, make sure you're eating your greens. I don't know. No, I have to kind of add this in as well. I'm no expert on this stuff. You know, I haven't. It's just through like my own personal curiosity that I look into like random things about like brain and about people and all sorts of random topics and things, bits of information that I've collected, and it's also stuff that I've put into practice, especially in the past, because this isn't the first time I've had burnout, you know, and it's that thing of learning when to stop as well. So I've booked a week off, and yeah, I'm looking forward to starting that. I probably won't do many YouTube videos or anything because I'm still trying to kind of find like the right niche, I think, for this channel. So yeah, there's a few topics I'd love to talk about, but it's just finding that time, and I don't really want to kind of push myself beyond. It's setting boundaries for myself. Shall I stop for a coffee break? Dare I? Caffeine is another one to avoid when you've got burnout, but I haven't learned that one yet. That's a hard habit to break. So that's kind of general burnout. Creative burnout, I think, is a little bit different, actually, just from my own observation and understanding. When you're creative and you want to kind of share your work with the world, it's kind of figuring out what you're trying to say to the world almost. I think with creativity, it is a form of expression. So what is it that you're trying to express, and what is it you want to share with the world? It's kind of that thing of figuring out. Yeah, I don't know if that made sense. With creative burnout, it's getting to that point where you've been saying so much that maybe now is the time to be quiet, figure out your next sentences, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, I think it's important to, if you are kind of getting overwhelmed, do talk to your GP or a therapist, a professional, if you are struggling to find coping mechanisms, coping techniques, kind of get yourself out there, out of the rut. Burnout is very much being in a state of feeling stuck and in a rut. So jack of all trades, master of none. So if you enjoyed that, be sure to subscribe and hopefully troll through some of my videos on the channel and things. Hopefully there's something in there that will help you or that you find entertaining. I don't know. I've forgotten how to close out these things. In general, if you found that entertaining or helpful or whatever else, do subscribe, guys. Also on Vines, and that is it, I think. Stay awesome, stay classy, be kind, and I describe it. Articulate as ever. So that's that. So yeah. And if you have symptoms, all the T's in that word, in that sentence even, it's a bit. As well as yeah. I think there's such complex. Where was I with that? Because I totally rambled and I'm like, burnout in a nutshell. No.